female idols, the makeup usually aims to create a more youthful look. But if this area is too narrow, it doesn't really look young. So I tend to make this space a bit wider. There are certain features that make someone look younger, like having a wide eyelid area here and having these parts farther apart. Just keep those things in mind when you do the makeup. This model already has a bit of shine on her nose and forehead, so I don't think there's any need to use anything too oily. And I just applied that light essence we used earlier above right. I also apply toner cream in a thin layer. Some staff members use a latex sponge for this, but since my hands touch the face, I start thinking, what should I apply next? I tend to do a lot of things with my hands because I calculate these steps with my hand. The area around the mouth is a bit dry, so I'll just apply a tiny bit of this Bioderm. Depending on the texture of the foundation, the type of latex you use should change, but if you pat too much with this one, I feel like the foundation might end up looking cakey because it adheres very strongly. At times like that, you need to quickly think of using a cushion or a moist latex sponge. You shouldn't just keep using the same tool you picked up. You need to change your approach. For people with naturally darker skin tones, I don't use a bright shade from the start. I gradually build up to a lighter tone. But since this model has a relatively fair complexion, I used a bright shade from the beginning. When I was a staff member, the shop was so busy that I would do base makeup for 20 or 30 people a day. Doing it that way naturally helped me develop a good sense of balance and improve my skills. If you really want to get good, shouldn't you come to a busy shop and work like crazy? I've already applied one tone. And since I usually do eye concealer after applying one tone, I'll use this shade number 5 that I used earlier. I don't need anything darker than that. The most important part here is to fill in this sunken area like this. When I was a staff member, for people with really large pores, I would first apply a hydrating primer and then use something really thick, you know what I mean? Like a thick pore primer, such as Benefit Pore Professional. I would apply that one more time. And when you go to a shoot, you don't always go to bright, nice places. You never know where you'll end up. So I always carry my own lighting with me. Because if I can't do my job properly without lighting, I'm the only one who loses out. The shade I use on the model is actually quite bright, but when I work with idols, they always ask for this kind of skin tone. It's Fenty Beauty. You can buy it at Sephora. So I apply it to the inner areas. Because the lighting is really strong, it actually looks prettier when it's a bit brighter. This part I mentioned earlier. Here, whether it's for a bride or for daily makeup, this area absolutely has to look clear. The color on the eyelids, the base is actually really difficult, right? But honestly, we don't have much time to work with. So when I'm really busy, I move my hands super fast like this. Rather than being completely oily, the jaw area here is a bit dry, the cheeks a combination, and the nose and forehead seem a bit oily. If the dark circles under here aren't properly covered, you end up looking really tired. You need to cover things like this well too. But in Korea, it's hard to find concealers this bright. This one's from Chanel, and it's really bright, so I use it to fill in the most sunken areas when I want my face to look pale. When you do makeup, the cheek area can get a bit wiped off, so I'll do that at the end. For powder, I actually use a different color, something more in a peach tone like this. Powder is also really important, so I think it's worth investing in a good, expensive. Press it in between the eyebrows as well. If my eyebrow color is too dark, sometimes I use eyebrow mascara first before doing anything else. But since my hair color is still quite dark, I use this kind of gray shade. But after applying this, you need to give it some time to dry. So if you press on it right away, it will smudge everywhere. When I do my makeup, I never use any force at all. You really have to relax your wrist a lot to create these soft, fluffy brows. Just lightly brush along the direction of the hair. I'm going to do my makeup with a slightly younger vibe. Also draw my eyebrows a bit straighter, not too arched. When doing the front part, I didn't fill it in completely, just dotted in the longer area. If you fill in the whole area with a wide brush like this, it can look really heavy on people with thick brows. It can make you look a lot older. Since the model kind of looks like a rabbit, I'll try doing a rabbit mountain style. This part here is narrower. But if this area is really narrow and you use too much color, it can look really tacky. So you need to check those things carefully as well. I also think something that's too pink might not suit you very well. Sometimes if you use colors like this, it can look really outdated. So something like this coral shade would be good. And I actually do things a bit differently. I apply the color I want from here to here, and then tidy up these areas. I clean up these yellowish parts as well. To be honest, even when I do natural makeup, I don't really keep it that natural. These days, in the past, when people ask for natural makeup, they really wanted it to look natural. But now, since they see a lot of Instagram, they don't really like it if it's too natural. When I do makeup for women, I tend to use a lot of colors in several steps. On stage, your eyes need to stand out up to here. I don't really like super white egg I prefer it to look a bit teary-eyed. And if it's too white, I also don't like it when the shadow underneath stands out too much. I also want the mid face to look shorter. Whoa, there's nothing here. If you want to make the egyosa look even bigger, you can draw a shadow underneath here and then extend the egyosa up to here again. But seeing this here and actually trying it yourself is so different. So I think if you could experience it firsthand on site, it would really hit home. That's what I think. I really like this brush, but it's really expensive. It's from Picasso, but there's no powder fallout. It doesn't drop much underneath. And I don't use products that don't give good color payoff in one go. But this one gives great color payoff in just one swipe. So I really love it. And these days I use this size from Le Bois a lot too. It's great for drawing eyebrows here, and it's originally good for drawing aegyosal shadows here, and it blends really well. The size is just perfect for drawing aegyosal. When you apply this shadow, it gets a bit sticky. That makes it adhere really well. And anyway, with Egyosal, if you don't do it like this, it's hard to make it really stand out. So after doing it this way, if I want to add more, I tap on some concealer so it doesn't clump, and then layer more on top. That's why it really takes a long time for women, because we care about the detail. But honestly, the more detailed you are, the prettier it looks. If you do it, but I think you can just think of it the other way around. For men, the more detailed you get, the less appealing it looks. But for women, the more detailed, the prettier it is. Some young female idols sometimes skip the details because they're worried it might make them look older. When it comes to eyelash curlers, I really clamp down hard at the root. Because when you open your eyes, I like how the pupils look bright and clear, and there's really no need to force a curl. When you're applying false lashes, if you curl them too much, it just makes it harder to attach the false lashes. Since my irises are a bit brown right now, I tend to mix in a lot of brown liquid eyeliner. When I'm performing on stage, I'll draw the eyeliner out in a straight, elongated line. I always tell people to look straight ahead. Because if you close your eyes, you can't really do makeup while checking your eyes. So I keep checking while looking forward. That's why I keep telling them to look straight ahead. Depending on the concept, the line could go upward, but then only this part would stand out. From the front, you can see it drops slightly here and then goes straight. But sometimes I do draw the eyeliner on my open eyes, especially for these upturned eyes. Open your eyes. Then I check up to where I should draw. If someone like this comes in for a natural makeup look and says they really don't like thick eyeliner, I just draw it on the outer corner. Especially brides tend to dislike thick eyeliner. So I do it like this. But for idols, none of that matters as long as their eyes look big. That's all that counts. For right-handed people, the left side often ends up looking a bit sloppy because you can't quite reach it. That's why you really need to turn the face. When you use liquid liner, the brush starts to harden over time. So it doesn't go on well anymore. You have to wipe it and do it again. So you have to keep those things in mind as you go. But when I'm doing the point, I apply it almost like I'm layering on eyeshadow. I press it in firmly like this. Because if you mess up the brown like this, it'll fall all over here and you'll have to fix it again. This is a color I really like these days. And for those who draw it thick like this, you have to blend the brown and the base here, right? Lately, I've been obsessed with this color. So I use it to blend. After drawing the eyeliner, I layer this on top so it doesn't smudge. I cover it and then in between right here, in between. I don't like it when it looks too harsh. And for the line, I like it when it's a bit round right above the pupil. I like it when it looks lovely. So I think a lot about how to make the person look as lovely as possible. Of course, when it's a strong concept, I often go for a bolder look. So sometimes I fill in the waterline, and sometimes I don't. It depends on the eyes. But for this model, the waterline isn't that visible, so I didn't bother filling it in right now. And when her eyes are open, this side of her eye is more blocked in the front. This part needs to be opened up. You have to round it out the same way for this side as well. Then when her eyes are open, this part still looks a bit pinched. So I make this area rounder again. That's why you have to keep looking in the mirror and constantly observe the person's face. I don't draw the line thinly at the back. If you draw it thin, it doesn't look like the eye goes all the way to here. To make it look like the eye extends to here, I draw it a bit thicker. This is just my personal style. I feel like if I'm just going to look like myself after coming to the shop, what's the point of getting my makeup done? So I enjoy transforming people into someone else. Honestly, for eyes like these, I think it would be good to use two clusters, but I didn't bring two today, so I'll just use singles. Honestly, applying these false eyelashes is the part I find most bothersome, but you really have to take your time with it so they don't fall off even if you keep dancing on stage. You have to hold them in place. And when you're attaching them to the inner corner, you need to lift this part up a bit. That way, your eyes look bigger. But usually, there are a lot of people who stick the lashes down like this so the front isn't visible. The spacing is totally up to you. Just attach them however you like. Normally, people attach them between the lashes, but for those with a bit of a hollow lash root, you don't really have to worry about that and can just stick them on top. When you open your eyes, the inner corner is open and your eyes look even brighter and more sparkling. I don't bend the angle like this when I attach, just as it is. If you bend it and attach it, it ends up looking too much like this, which I don't really like. But I also don't attach them pointing downward. If you attach them downward, over time they droop too much. So you should just keep them straight, should I say, straight across. But I think you'll figure that out as you keep doing it. Or you could attach them all like this and use longer ones just at the front or sometimes only at the back. But I don't really calculate all that. I just go with my intuition. I think I pay more attention to the feeling or vibe of the person. And when I apply this to someone, I just instantly imagine what kind of look it will create and do the makeup based on that. When I want to extend the eyeliner line, I tend to attach more lashes toward the back. But for this model, I feel like it would look prettier not to add too many at the back. Personally, I think that when work becomes a top priority, you end up cutting back on a lot of things or your own style starts to look outdated because you just can't keep up. Because if you don't keep studying this, you keep falling behind. People use clear glue, but I find that this brown one comes out nice and thick, while the clear one is too watery, so it doesn't stick in one go, which is why I don't really use it. These days, the quality of black glue has gotten so bad that I don't use it at all. For this model, the details aren't that important. It's not like working on little kids. When I work on little kids, I just draw a line right here, just like that. At first, these days I fill this area in with a lighter shade instead of something dark. To make it look less aged and detailed, I blend out the color more towards the end of the eyeliner to make the eyes look longer. When I do the under eye, I use a lot of white shadow, so it doesn't look too heavy. I applied lashes a little below the lash line and towards the outer corner, but while it made the eyes look bigger, it took away a bit of the cuteness, so I removed them. For idols, I draw it a bit lower, but I personally don't like it when it's too dramatic, so I just keep it moderate. This is a Barbara art brush. There's a bit of space left here, where I apply the Aegyo pencil, so I brighten up all the way to here. But I don't really do this for people with oily skin. Only for those with dry skin, I apply cream blush first and then set it with powder. Personally, I also really like cream blush. If the cheekbones stick out too much, I always apply it just below, only on both sides. I think it depends on the concept. When it's a stronger concept, I don't even use colors like this. For powder, I almost always use shades like this for female idols. If you use only pink blush, it might not match the skin tone, so I mix in some coral and gradually layer it. That way, the final deep color doesn't show up too strongly and blends out smoothly, so the color payoff isn't too intense. You can also just boldly apply the deeper shade first and then blend it out. And here, the boundary between the blush and the skin, this color actually isn't all that pretty, to be honest. Normally, I use an apricot tangent colored eyeshadow to blend it out, but with this apricot blush, I apply it here right at the edge. But using blush here and using apricot are really different. If you use blush, it doesn't look as nice. With apricot, it just looks like your natural skin tone. Also, on music shows, even if you contour your nose with a really brown shade, it doesn't show up much, so you can be a bit bolder with it. Before applying lipstick, I lightly dab shimmer to mimic freckles. If I just use one type, it's boring, so I'm mixing and matching different ones as I apply them. And if I only use the big ones, it's even less interesting. When you use these fine shimmers, they sparkle beautifully on stage. This part is also up to you. I also layer several lip products, depending on the vibe. I do my makeup in the waiting room at the set, but since the lighting changes once I get to the studio, I tend to keep adjusting it there too. First, I start with a darker shade. I tidy up the outer edges later. If you clean up the lip line nicely here, it really brightens up your look. When applying lipstick, if the symmetry is off, just adjust it as you go to make it even. And since my lips are dry, I'll apply something glossy in the middle. When I apply lipstick, I keep wiping and blending to create a gradient. If you just keep going, the areas with a lot of product keep coming out. So I wipe and then blend again. Also, for women, you need to apply the lipstick precisely at the corners of the mouth for your photos to look good, right here. But if you become an entertainer, you really have to use your brain a lot because you constantly have to come up with new ideas. And there's a lot of pressure from the company to do so. And I think working in entertainment would be really tough if you don't have a good sense for it. It feels like life would get pretty hard. So I think it's best to find a career that really suits you. If you try to do everything, the makeup ends up looking really tacky. So I think the most important thing is to look at the person's face and look. But if there's something I'd like to do more right now, it would be to make the AGO-SAL under eye fat stand out more. Thank you for your hard work. I want to express how deeply and most sincerely I appreciate all of this incredibly diligent and dedicated work. Your unwavering commitment